When Harry met Sally, they shared a lasting love story, but not all Hollywood couples have that same fate. Today, we're delving into Tinseltown's unforgettable summer of separations. So before you say, I'll have what she's having, let's take a look at the legal side of love and fame. Ashton and Price is a personal injury law firm providing legal representation for personal injury claims throughout Northern California. We're joined today by attorney Craig Ashton, who's going to share his own Pelican brief on a few stories. Welcome again, Craig.
That was good.
There we go. I'm glad you liked it. So, Craig, we're talking about divorces right now with a lot of A-listers. Let's start off with Kevin Costner and his wife, Christine. What were the legal implications of residency and venue, and how does it apply to maybe some of us?
Yeah, because we've had 4 kind of big divorces, and people are probably wondering, well, you know, if they were married in Lake Como or maybe the French Riviera, you know, where do they file? So it's about where you live. It's called residency.
Okay.
So Sophie Turner and Joe Jonas are getting divorced. Their residency is in Miami, so they filed in Dade County. Kevin Costner, his residence is in Carpinteria, so he's in Santa Barbara County. So you have to be a resident of the state for 6 months, and then of that county for 3 months before you can file. And that stops people from basically venue shopping, saying, hey, you know, I think I'm going to go to a southern state where they're more favorable to men, perhaps, let's say, in South Carolina, and you can venue shop. And that's what the residency thing stops. And so that's why Sophie Turner and Joe Jonas are in Florida, and then Kevin Costner is in Santa Barbara County. Okay,
and you mentioned, I mean, that's the recent one that I'm hearing a lot about, Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner. How are their assets being impacted through this as they're going through that divorce?
Yeah, the one thing that all these divorces have in common, so even Britney Spears, is they have what's called a prenuptial agreement. So a prenuptial agreement essentially anticipates if the marriage doesn't work, big if, because you don't want that to be the outcome. But just being smart, you say, hey, let's go ahead in advance while we're clear-minded and we don't hate each other. Put in writing, you know, how we're going to split up our assets. So in that particular case, they have a prenuptial agreement. They have 2 children, and they're venued in Florida, which is an equitable distribution state, which is similar to community property, but allows the court a little bit more leeway. Because they're looking at joint custody, then at that particular instance, they're both going to share it, unlike some other couples that get divorced and they're fighting over who gets what and who takes the children. In that case, the prenuptial agreement will basically determine how the assets are distributed, and because you're sharing custody, probably the child support will be basically equally shared.
Okay, let's talk about the child support, especially with Kevin Costner. The court significantly reduced his child support payments. How do courts decide on these situations?
So it basically, who has the primary custody? And in this case, I think Christine Baumgartner is the one that's going to get primary custody. And she was making an argument about basically what the children's lifestyle used to be, which is not really what you argue. It's about what's in the best interest of the children. So when the court finally looked at it, they thought her $248,000 a month in child support was basically spousal support, just called child support. So they said, no, first it was $161,000, now they reduced it to $63,000, which is still a lot. But the interesting thing about Kevin Costner's prenuptial agreement says that if she contests the prenuptial agreement, there's a $1.5 million lump sum payment. If she contests it and loses, she doesn't get anything. So that's why she's only going after the child support.
Got it. Okay, and another divorce, a well-known one, actors Sofia Vergara and Joe Manganiello, where they have no children. How does the length of the marriage and each spouse's contributions affect division of assets?
Right. So that's a good question. So in California, if you are married for 10 years or more, it's considered a long-term marriage.
Okay.
And then the person with the more financial clout will pay spousal support for the rest of that person's life. If you get divorced before 10 years, then the court basically takes the time that you were married and cuts it in half and gives you a certain amount of money in spousal support based upon the financial differences in where the couple is situated at the end of the marriage. So in this particular case, they have a prenuptial agreement. So they already anticipated this. She says, look, she was the highest paid TV star in 2020, right? So she was basically making more bank than anybody. And she was smart. She protected that in the anticipation of the really bad outcome of divorce, because it happens. And they have an agreement which says, hey, this is how we split it up. I want to keep the art. I want to keep my basically royalties, etc., and residuals. And let's walk our separate ways. And thanks for coming, but you know, let's be friends.
Yeah. And then we can't forget about Britney Spears. I mean, her marriage drew a lot of attention, especially it happening after her conservatorship. So how does the legal arrangement impact divorce proceedings, and what's its significance in her case particularly?
So, oops, I'm not that into you. So she had a prenuptial agreement too, which is interesting because she had a conservatorship, which meant that she could not enter into contract because the court said you're incompetent, which is weird because she was doing like 3 shows a week or a week in Vegas. You can't be incompetent and remember all those lyrics and all those dance moves, in my opinion. She should have had a financial planner. But Her conservatorship was terminated, so then she can enter into contract. She has a prenuptial agreement. They're only married from June 2022 through September of 2023, or August of 2023. Moral of the story, Sam Ashgari is going to get nothing except for gifts. There is a non-disclosure agreement in there, and she's worried about disclosing her personal life, so she may give him a lump sum payment just to buy some sort of contract, because he may try to contest the prenuptial agreement, which could cause her embarrassment.
Okay, and I mean, when people get married, they're not thinking about divorce. You know, they say till death do us part. So in all these legal matters, what should every married couple be mindful of?
So here's the thing. So the defenses to contracts are, I didn't sign that, or I was under duress. In other words, you put me under too much pressure, or it's not fair. But in California, you have the Uniform Premarital Agreement Act. Essentially, if you basically disclose all your assets and then get an attorney and then wait a week and sign it, then everything is in writing in advance when you're clear-headed and you still had love on the horizon and you don't have to worry about the financial issues. Because when people get divorced, they tend not to like each other. And then it becomes acrimonious, it becomes basically judgmental, it becomes confrontational, it becomes hateful, and you don't want to live that. So just put it in writing in advance. That's the best way to do it, and that way you save yourself, like these 4 couples did, from the acrimony of dividing assets.
All right, plan ahead. Craig, always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Of course. And you can find out more by going to ashtonandprice.com/Sacramento.